We've all heard of patriotism. It's the love for your country, right? The feeling of pride in where you come from. But what happens when that love starts to feel more like blind faith? What about when patriotism is used to justify the unjustifiable? That's where misopatria comes in. It's a new word for a new way of looking at the world. Misopatria challenges the traditional idea of patriotism. It's not about blind allegiance. It's about love for your country, sure, but with your eyes wide open. It's about holding your nation accountable for its actions, both good and bad. It's about demanding justice and equality for all, not just a select few. This isn't about hating your country, far from it. It's about wanting something better, something more just, something more inclusive. It's about recognizing that our fates are intertwined, no matter where we come from. We're all in this together, folks, so buckle up, because we're about to take a deep dive into Misopatria. We'll explore its origins, its philosophy, and its potential to change the world. Get ready for a bumpy ride. The idea of Misopatria didn't just appear out of thin air. It emerged from a growing sense of unease, a dissonance between the ideals of patriotism and the realities of the world. For me, it started with those awkward 4th of July celebrations. Don't get me wrong, I love a good barbecue as much as the next guy. But something about the blind patriotism, the unquestioning allegiance, always felt off. It felt especially strange given America's history, slavery, segregation, the treatment of Native Americans. These weren't exactly things to celebrate. It was like we were pretending these injustices never happened, sweeping them under the rug in the name of patriotism. And that didn't sit right with me. My own experiences, coupled with the writings of philosophers and thinkers, led me to a crucial realization. Blind patriotism is dangerous. It allows us to overlook injustice, to accept inequality, to turn a blind eye to suffering. It creates an us versus them mentality, dividing the world into patriots and traitors. This realization brought to mind the image of the ocean. We often see countries as separate entities divided by borders and ideologies. But in reality, we're all part of the same vast ocean of humanity. What harms one of us harms us all. Misopatria recognizes this interconnectedness, this shared fate. It calls for a new kind of patriotism, one that transcends borders and embraces our common humanity. Misopatria emerged as a response to the shortcomings of traditional patriotism. It recognized the hypocrisy of claiming to love your country while ignoring the plight of marginalized communities. It saw the dangers of blind allegiance, the way it stifles dissent and enables injustice, and it called for a different path, a more just and equitable way forward. For too long, patriotism has been used as a tool of division and oppression. It has been used to justify wars, to discriminate against minorities, to silence dissenting voices. Misopatria seeks to reclaim patriotism, to redefine it as a force for good. This new patriotism is not about blind allegiance, but about critical engagement. It's about holding our leaders accountable, demanding that they live up to the ideals they claim to represent. It's about fighting for justice and equality for all, regardless of race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. Misopatria recognizes that our destinies are intertwined. Climate change, poverty, inequality, these are not just national problems, but global ones. They require global solutions, solutions that can only be achieved through cooperation and understanding. Misopatria calls for a world where we see ourselves not just as citizens of nations, but as citizens of the world. We live in a world on fire, figuratively, of course, though with climate change, maybe literally too. The point is, things are a mess. Traditional patriotism, with its focus on narrow national interests, has failed to address the pressing challenges of our time. In fact, it often exacerbates them. Take climate change, for example. It's a global problem that requires global cooperation. Yet many countries remain fixated on their own short-term interests, unwilling to make the sacrifices necessary to avert disaster. This is nationalism at its worst, a dangerous myopia that threatens the future of our planet. Then there's the issue of rising inequality. The gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen, both within and between countries. This growing disparity is a recipe for instability, fueling resentment, conflict and social unrest. Traditional patriotism, with its emphasis on competition and national self-interest, does little to address this issue. We also can't ignore the rise of toxic nationalism around the world. From the United States to Europe to Asia, we're seeing a resurgence of xenophobia, racism, and intolerance. This dangerous trend threatens to unravel the fabric of our societies, pitting us against each other based on our differences rather than uniting us based on our shared humanity. These are just a few of the many challenges that Misopatria seeks to address. It's a tall order, no doubt, but in a world teetering on the brink, we need bold solutions. We need a new way of thinking about ourselves and our place in the world. Section 5. A better way forward, Misopatria in action. So how does Misopatria actually work? How do we move from this abstract idea to concrete action? Well, it starts with a shift in mindset. We need to move away from blind allegiance and embrace critical patriotism. This means questioning our leaders, challenging the status quo, and demanding better. It also means recognizing the importance of inclusivity. A just and equitable society is one that values all its members, regardless of their background. Misopatria calls for a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, where everyone feels a sense of belonging. This requires a new cultural narrative, one that celebrates our common humanity while acknowledging our differences. It's about recognizing that our diversity is a strength, not a weakness. It's about building bridges instead of walls, about embracing empathy and understanding. Misopatria also emphasizes the importance of global vision. We need to move beyond narrow national interests and embrace our shared responsibility for the planet and its people. This means cooperating to address global challenges like climate change, poverty, and inequality. Finally, Misopatria is about action. It's not enough to simply talk about change. We need to be active participants in creating it. This means getting involved in our communities, speaking out against injustice, and holding our leaders accountable. Section 6. Reimagining patriotism, inclusivity, and global cooperation. Misopatria isn't about rejecting patriotism altogether. It's about redefining it for the 21st century. It's about creating a patriotism that is inclusive, just, and globally minded. A patriotism that reflects the interconnectedness of our world and the shared challenges we face. Imagine a world where patriotism is not about blind allegiance to a flag or a nation-state, but about a deep commitment to the well-being of all people and the planet. Imagine a world where we celebrate our differences while recognizing our common humanity. This new patriotism would be built on the foundation of inclusivity. It would recognize that a nation is only as strong as its most vulnerable members. It would strive to create a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or socio-economic status. This inclusive patriotism would also embrace global cooperation. It would recognize that the challenges we face, climate change, poverty, inequality, transcend national borders. It would call for a world where nations work together to address these shared challenges, recognizing that our fates are intertwined. Section 7. The power of critical engagement, holding our nations accountable. Misopatria recognizes that blind allegiance is not a virtue, it's a liability. True love for one's country involves critical engagement, holding it accountable for its actions and striving to make it better. It's about demanding that our nations live up to their ideals even when it's uncomfortable. This critical engagement takes many forms. It can be as simple as having difficult conversations with family and friends who hold different views. It can involve writing to elected officials, organizing protests, or supporting organizations working for social justice. The key is to not shy away from difficult truths. We must be willing to acknowledge the flaws in our own societies and to challenge systems of oppression. This isn't about tearing down our countries. It's about building them up to be more just and equitable. Remember, dissent is not disloyalty. It's a vital part of a healthy democracy. By engaging critically with our nations, we can help them live up to their promises and create a better world for all. Section 8. Building a just world from vision to reality. Misopatria offers a transformative vision for society, one that prioritizes justice, equality, and global cooperation. But how do we turn this vision into reality? It starts with each and every one of us embracing the principles of Misopatria in our own lives. We can start by challenging our own biases and prejudices. We can educate ourselves about the experiences of marginalized communities and use our voices to advocate for change. And we can support organizations working to create a more just and equitable world. We can also make conscious choices about how we consume and participate in the global economy. We can support businesses that prioritize ethical labor practices and environmental sustainability. We can reduce our carbon footprint and advocate for policies that address climate change. Building a just world requires collective action. We need to come together as global citizens, united by our shared humanity and our commitment to creating a better future for all. Misso Patria provides the framework for this collective action, offering a path forward that is both aspirational and achievable. Section 9. A Call to Action. Embracing Misso Patria for a Brighter Future. Misso Patria is more than just a word, it's a call to action. It's a call to reject blind allegiance and embrace critical patriotism. It's a call to prioritize inclusivity, justice, and global cooperation. It's a call to build a better world for ourselves and for generations to come. The challenges we face are complex and interconnected: climate change, inequality, social injustice. These issues require global solutions and a fundamental shift in how we view ourselves and our place in the world. Misso Patria offers a path forward. It calls for a new kind of patriotism, one that transcends borders and embraces our common humanity. It calls for a world where we prioritize the well-being of all people and the planet, where we celebrate our differences while recognizing our interconnectedness. This is not a utopian dream, it's a necessity. The future of our planet and our species depends on our ability to come together and address these challenges head-on. Misso Patria provides the framework for this collective action, offering a vision of a brighter future that is within our reach. So, let us embrace Misso Patria and embark on this journey together. Let us build a world where love for one's country is not defined by blind allegiance, but by a deep commitment to justice, equality, and the well-being of all. Let us create a world where patriotism and global citizenship are no longer seen as contradictory, but as complementary forces working towards a shared goal: a just, equitable, and sustainable future for all.